Hello everyone, it's me Clayton. I just finished watching I.S.S, starring Ariana DeBose, Chris Messina, John Gallagher Jr., and directed by Gabriella Cowperthwaite. Now, thrillers in space certainly have a lot of potential when it comes to the fact that in space no one can hear you scream, and especially considering that space movies can often take place on isolated locations that can't be visited by anyone other than the few scientists that are on board a space station. Such is the case here. So let's get to the story. The story follows Kira Foster, played by Ariana DeBose, who is traveling via the Soyuz rocket to the International Space Station to work alongside Russian cosmonauts on various scientific achievements and advancements. But when a war happens on Earth between the United States and Russia, the US astronauts and the Russian cosmonauts are given messages to take control of the International Space Station by any means necessary. So basically, the race is on to try and find out who's going to take control of the space station before the two sides take each other out one by one. That's all I'll say about the story without spoiling anything. It's definitely an efficient thriller, considering that while it does take a while to get us acquainted with the characters throughout the first 30 or so minutes, the last hour of the film is basically a thrill ride from beginning to end. And at around 95 minutes of screen time total, including the credits, it definitely doesn't waste too much time with pointless meandering. At the same time, however, it does feel like a lot of its plot points come across as ones you can tell coming from a mile away. You can tell who's going to do which action, who's going to die, and who's going to end up saving the day for a specific scene or who's going to make it till the end of the film. Especially considering that the actors are given pretty standard roles, from scientists who want to experiment on mice the to a longing man who wants re, to reunite with his girls back on Earth, to Russian cosmonauts who are actually in love on board as well as on Earth. So yeah, a lot of the characters are pretty typical, but they are played well. Ariana DeBose especially delivers a pretty solid performance. Even when she's in bad films, I still think she does the best with what she's given. And Gabriella Cowperthwaite's direction does a good job keeping the location pretty cramped and therefore pretty claustrophobic for both the thriller scenes as well as the scenes in the beginning where the six main characters are just sort of talking and interacting with each other. It still feels appropriately tense in that respect. So even though the story is predictable, the good actors manage to keep me invested when it comes to their performances and when it comes to the various scenes where characters die or where there's little threads in the plot. We don't see the actual conflict that occurs on Earth outside of some explosions that we see from afar, but I'm glad that we don't see a lot of large scale destruction from the ground level. I'm glad that it leaves a lot of that up to interpretation when it comes to whether the U.S. is winning or Russia is winning, especially considering that it contributes well to the movie's ending, which, without spoiling anything, does come across as an ending that has some scary implications given who survives and how things might be on Earth when they manage to get there. So while I.S.S. doesn't really do anything that new with its premise, its good acting, good effects, and generally good pacing keep things generally entertaining for a thriller that lasts just as long as it needs to. That's why I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. See you next time.